Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Gardens, the Untold Story. I'm your host, Ken Somerville, my co host, Andy Lopez, the Invisible Gardener. And Andy, we're talking about celestial harvest, tapping into cosmic energies. I know we kind of fly off the handle and go out to the extreme,
Yeah, here we
points in the
go.
universe. And I think that's one of the shows for today.
Here we go, everybody. Those that know me, you better sit down, fasten your seatbelt, make sure you have your oxygen mask ready and those of you that don't know me, you will know me. So let me start off with. I did some previous thinking before I came here, and
Well, that's probably good. You thought about it anyway.
I wrote down some notes. I said most people think the gardens sleep when the sun goes down. But that's when the celestial work begins. How's that? Isn't that cool? Yeah, I tell you, man, I am just out there. So I want to introduce you to people that we aren't just growing plants, we're managing energy.
Yeah.
Okay, so we talked a lot about energy. Last time we talked about energy, So today we're looking at celestial gardening, how the moon, the zodiac, and the invisible forces of the cosmos dictate the soil of your house. Isn't that cool? Isn't that cool? You guys are interested? So let's get started.
I know Lily's grandmother always went by the phases of the moon for her planting, etc.
Yeah.
So this is something that's not new in any way, shape, or form.
No, one of my favorite books is the Old Farmer's Almanac, because they tell you when to plant, when not to plant, right? And so but it has a lot to do with the gravitational pull, how it affects the soil moisture, how it affects soil moisture, right? It's just much like it affects the tides. And so I'm going to try to talk to people about above ground crops and below ground root crops. Above ground crops is called waxing moons. You want to do it during the waxing moon, and below crops during the waning moon. And these are things that I deal with energy in very different ways with people, because I see the influence that the moon has on everything, on water. We're water people. So we have they have the same influence on us as the plants, as the soil biology. And it's really interesting because I also wrote down the invisible connection, So it's not just about what we see, but the invisible energies, cosmic rays, magnetic fields, lunar cycles, and solar, and all this planetary alignment, all these things that are going on now definitely affects us, and affects us. Not only does it affect the soil biology, but it affects the earth itself. You notice that we're having all kinds of. We're going to have a major El Nino. The ocean is super hot. Oh, okay, here we go. Go above his and the moon. I had Patrick 40 pumpkin, healthy and gorgeous. Yeah, silly. And so it's a really interesting thing. So I was just going to cover some of the zodiac signs and elements, because we want to keep moving along, because I got tons and tons. It just doesn't stop. So root days are the earth signs, best for carrots, potatoes, beets, anything you plant in the ground. And it makes sense because the moon is on the other side and the earth's pulling it down into the ground. But also the soil biology, it gets affected by that. Us people are also affected by that. Leaf days will be a water sign, so they're best for lettuce, spinach, herbs, all those things. Flower days are air signs, best for roses and flowering ornamentals. And you have the fruit trees and seed days, they're fire signs, best for tomatoes, beans, and fruit trees, right? And so one of the things that is really interesting is the tides in the soil. How's that? Isn't that cool? You ever hear anybody talk about tides in the soil?
Most people don't understand that the moisture level in your soil moves up and down just like the tides do. And that's where the planting by the moon is so important. If you're planting outdoors, if you're planting indoors, you're supplying that yourself, moisture levels. But the moisture in the soil goes up and down with the moon as well.
Right. And most people, they think about the move, it moves the oceans, right?
Yeah.
But I look at it differently. In the soil and inside the plant, it's a vascular system, it's water. It changes, it affects the plants as well. It affects, and of course, it affects the biology, because they need the water, right? They're like
Yeah.
without water, you don't have biology. Really interesting. And so the waxing moon increases light, and that's why it's good for above ground energy, whereas the waning moon decreases light.
Mm-hmm.
What's really interesting is that you should never, oh, this is my feeling, never plant during full moon because the energy is too stressful, right? So I learned, that's how I was studying biodynamic systems, okay? Because Rudolf Steiner really introduced me to all this cosmic stuff, right? He really is. Because I read in between what he
lines.
was saying, right? In between the lines, what he was saying. So I really loved biodynamic preparations because he would
Mm-hmm.
say, you can take this energy and put it over there, which is all energy, transfer of energy, right? And so his concept was how fermented mineral and herbal preparations are used to tune the soul to the celestial rhythms. Isn't that cool? And these are
Yeah.
things that's just coming to my mind because I am a garden of knowledge. I just came up with that. Sorry.
Well, your brain is sprouting. You got a tree coming out of your head and some biology
Yeah, there you
sticking out
go.
of your ear. And
That's right. That's right. My brain is sprouting, and you got the sun coming out. So we have a nice connection. Okay, we have a nice connection. And I want to tell people that science aren't just horoscopes. They represent specific electromagnetic influences on the Earth's atmosphere that plants respond to. Not just plants, us people, dogs, all living things respond to that. You see,
mm-hmm.
remember last time we talked about a little bit, I like calling it cosmic gardening because we're surrounded with all this energy and we either die from not being able to use it or we flourish,
Yeah.
right? And so one of the things that's going on here is uh, I call them D space and biodynamics, okay? Because it's kind of weird. Uh, there are nodes, I call them no-go zones. These are lunar nodes when the moon crosses the ecliptic. In celestial garden, they are often considered rest days where no planting or harvesting should occur because the energy is too chaotic. And that's the same thing with human beings. When the energy is too chaotic, you really need to sit down and meditate and relax because anything you do, everything's surrounded. It's so chaotic. And to me, I was also watching a YouTube channel to talk about eyes, color of your eyes. My eyes are green, see?
Okay, you say so.
And I'm one of those space creatures. I really am one of those space creatures. So I want to talk
I
about the
think we
role.
call that a space case. Yeah,
Space
yeah.
case. Oh, God. Okay, the role of planets beyond the moon. Let's just go deeper a little bit, just beyond the moon. Let's talk about Saturn or Venus, where people historically thought that they get influence on different crops, and the reality of it, the reality is every planet in our, not just every planet in our solar system, planets outside of our solar system. There's a Betelgeuse, for example. Betelgeuse is already blowing up, and it's spewing. It's it's a giant, the brightest. It's going to be the brightest thing in the sky, even brighter than the moon and Venus. It's going to be sitting there. You're going to go, wow! And literally, we're going to have two suns, and it's not as big, but it's very super bright. How do you think that affects plants?
Well, I think that's going to affect the entire planet, not just plants. It's going to affect us.
Exactly
Those
right.
radio waves and energy
Exactly
waves
right.
coming in.
Exactly right. They're beyond. They're like we're being bombarded by so many different kinds of rays that we have no idea what majority of them are and how they affect. Oh, for example, what's the name of the volcano in the park, that big park?
Yellowstone National Park.
Yellowstone, right? And so that one's starting to. All these volcanoes are responding to the. What about? Yeah, right. Exactly right. And I mean, there are so many different planets which have such a strange effect on our bodies as well as the plants. And so I talked a little bit about electric gardening. Well, this is really electric gardening because electricity is just one little form of energy in the spectrum. It's just one tiny little thing.
Yeah.
We have cosmic rays. We have We have all kinds of rays on one end and kinds of rays on the other end. And so everything, what is it? Everything creates ripples, which is important to get in good vibes. So let's see, this is a good one. Right, there you go.
Oh, yeah. Quit taking it off.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like, and what I like about you people, as I was going to say, is that you understand what I'm saying. And so some of you people are just showing up and go, what is he talking about? I don't know what he's talking about. Do you know what he's talking about? But and so and one of the things that's really cool, I call it pest control by the stars.
Oh no, that's a new one to me. I don't think we've ever talked about that before, Andy.
It's called peppering.
Peppering, okay.
Yeah, I asked my favorite AI, what is pest control by the stars called? And it says it's peppering, burning the seeds of weed or the body of a pest when the moon is in a specific sign to create homeopathic deterrent for the garden. So when I started studying all these weird things, one of the things I do is radionics.
Yeah.
The radionics is, so one of the things this guy invented, his name is Hieronymus, and they call it the Hieronymus device. So he has this device that goes in the garden. It's like basically a tube, and it's made according to a law of energy. That means that in our planet here, the way that the cosmic rays are absorbed and retained is that it goes through a layer of organic and inorganic material. Cosmic ray comes in, it does not, or is it organic, inorganic? So it's inorganic, organic material, and inorganic. And when it does that, it actually absorbs that. So, and that's called, and radionics is very interesting. It was developed in Germany, where they understand the frequency of, so when they were using it for healing, for example, so if a person's healthy and that you have a picture of when he's healthy, you put it in this device, and you also so you take a picture of when the person's sick, that person will get the frequency of when you're healthy and heal you. They have it banned in the United States. They also have it banned pest control, because the pest control, so the way this Hieronymus device is really cool. So you have snails. So you take the snails and you kill it and you put it in this machine, snails go away. If your property has a deficient in calcium, you put calcium in there, calcium, and you can test the plants, they have the calcium. It transfers those frequencies to the plant, to your property. And the Hieronymus device is a really cool device because it actually works not just your neighbor's yard, get it, when you look at Nikola Tesla, he was really into that, to the point where you can actually turn electricity on somebody, your house on without any wire. Because this energy that comes through our planet can be retransmitted and absorbed and retransmitted. So that's very, very cool. And especially when you talk about gardening, when you talk about plants, because I talked a long time ago about why do we eat these things, right? So, and I'm not even going to go, you missed the story about the minerals. We're going to be doing some more of this really spacey stuff coming up in the next shows. It's really, I was just going to cover that real fast, because you guys are not going to believe what I'm going to be talking about. The next show is going to be called the fourth phase. Revolution growth with structured water.
Yeah.
Right? Then the next one after that is magnetic roots, how Earth's force drives soil life. Then we have the next one is liquid blueprint. Liquid blueprint, why water is the master key to life. Then we have the underground feast, the secret sauce of all soil biology. And I mean, I'm going nuts. You need to give me drugs quickly.
I don't need to give you any more drugs, Andy. Okay?
Subterranean engineers unlocking the secrets of earthworms. And then we have immunity by design, permanent fixes for pests and diseases. And that's a good one, because I just explained it briefly just a few minutes ago. And then we have another one called Black Gold, where every compost seed has a different soul, S-O-U-L. And I got to tell you, man, it's about time I started talking about these, because it's all about the biology. It's all about, and it's really all about energy. I might just change my my podcast to. It's all about energy because that's what it's really all about. So one of the things that I have notes on is harvesting for longevity, and so that's very important to understand because when you pick things during the wrong time of the energy is contrary to keeping the product, your food alive and healthy. Whereas if you do it with the right energy, because one of the things I wrote, the gardener acts as the bridge between the terrestrial, the soil, and the celestial, the stars, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's really, really, really one of the reasons I got my name, Invisible Gardener, because I would garden at night under the full moon. And
were you dressed or not dressed, Andy?
I was
I can't.
undressed.
You
I
talked
didn't
about
wear.
it, but
I didn't wear clothing. No, they called me the. At first, they were calling me the naked
street.
gardener. I didn't
Yeah,
like that. That was like too revealing. But they just called me the wild gardener.
Hmm.
But one of the things I've learned is under the light, at night, you get to see how the energies really work, how the insects work, how the plants work, and how we are connected to that. Because you can sit there and meditate, and the bugs will come up to you and go, he's a very unusual human being, right? Right?
Well, the
And
best one for me was I had a bee land on my nose for like 3 to 5 minutes and just stare at me in my eyes. It's like never stung or anything, never moved around, just land there and watched me. It's like, okay, what are you?
So I just want to bring up that I don't know how many people know what the current moon's phase is, but the moon is in a waning crescent phase. It's perfect for weeding and soil preparation, but not for heavy planting. Right. And so it's just we have to remember that we are celestial conducts. And again, I talked a lot about it, and I want to finish this thought because every time they plant a seed, they're connecting the earth to the universe. Oh my God, oh my God. And I was talking about trace minerals.
Yeah.
And how does anybody know why we trace minerals? And you people that hear it, can you make the comment and say, oh, I know what we eat trace. Why? And you're probably wrong if you think you eat trace minerals because you need your body to have trace minerals in order to be healthy. What is the real reason? Why don't you just tell them? These guys don't know what we're talking about.
Why we need trace minerals? Well, for one thing, they're building blocks for our cells and for our biology.
Can't say that.
And
That's
it collects the cosmic energy.
There you go.
Different trace minerals, relate to different frequencies. And that's what Rick is saying here.
Exactly right. I learned that from experience because see, I have one of those weird body thing going on where I can see sound and hear colors. And so that's always been my curse or my gift, whichever way you want to think about it. And
a little of both.
And I would literally, and so when a tree is glowing a certain color, I relate it to a certain mineral. And then I find that the tree is not glowing a certain color is deficient in that mineral. So a healthy plant would always be glowing a certain color because you have all the minerals. And that's our refractometer does that too. We talk a lot about a refractometer because basically they're looking at the color and changing it to something that we can read.
Yes.
Right? It's a certain frequency. So the higher the bricks level, different frequencies. See what I mean? So you can literally just work on the frequency level of plants, and eventually you start working on your frequency. Because if your frequency is at a certain level, you can tune in. It's tuning, right? You can tune in. That's a gift. Oh, thank you, Silly. Yeah, it is a gift because I can see when a person's not healthy. I used to go to these convention things, where they show new health things, and there was one that had a computer that sees your aura. And so I would sit there and I would say, oh, that aura is deficient in a certain color. They would sit down and guys, how did you know that aura? Because they would take a picture of your aura and the computer would just spit it out. These are the colors. And you can even see the weird things that are going on with that person, right? And I can see that, like you guys, and the thing is pretty interesting, that you can see it through TV. I can see it through the TV because it doesn't change. The frequency gets transmitted through the TV. If it can be transmitted through a TV, it can be transmitted through lots of other things. And so
Yeah.
when the cosmic rays shoot through the Earth, it goes from one end of inside the Earth and out the other Earth in a nanosecond. I think we had talked about that a long time ago. It's like 1 billionth or 1 trillionth.
The fractals and stuff like that.
Yeah. And the fractal is the representative of the frequency. And so it's very, very interesting how this whole thing, it's all about frequency. And I would say it's I'm not a religious guy, but it's true pointing at something's going on out there that is not just haphazard. The universe doesn't throw stuff together and everything falls into place. Something's going on. And what's this? What is this? Let me look at this one. I like this one. What does it say?
We get sprayed with aluminum. Silica is nearly the same frequency. Add silica to nullify the aluminum.
You guys are something else, because it's true. You know, once you learn what the frequency is of that element, you can literally learn how to use that and learn how to. That's why I do foliar spraying. So people don't understand foliar spraying on the basic level, which is basically just trace minerals going on, but they won't understand on the level that I'm actually spraying frequencies. And when I look at a plant, I spray it, and they actually have. So when I was a kid, when I was young, in my early 20s, somebody heard me on a radio show who works on NASA, right?
Right.
And I was telling him you can actually see it because your eyes can see it. He developed lenses you put on. Average person can put on, bada bing, bada boom. You can see what's deficient in the plant because the plant gives out the frequency. It's kind of like a blue blocker, but it's really different. I should have brought it with me because he called me up one day. You gave me the idea. I'm giving you this lens. This is NASA on it, right? And I don't need to. What happens is when I go out, I bring it with me, and I look at a tree, and I give the owner, here, look at this. And he goes, my God, why does it look so? It doesn't look healthy. Right. You're right, because it doesn't give off the frequency, whereas the lenses will show you that frequency. And I can see it when I can look. So I can look at trees, birds, all those kinds of creatures. They all are. And what's interesting, they blend, they form how do you call it? Is a
kaleidoscope?
Yeah, you got it. All the colors. And so white is a blend of all the colors and black is no colors. Right? You know what I mean? And so a dead person has no colors. Nothing comes out of it, right? Right? You know? Or a tree that's dead, no colors. It's just black. It's just a void. I see it as a void. I got in trouble so many times as a kid. I would go up to the people, you know, you're going to die soon or you're already dead because you have no colors. And my mom said, never, ever say that. So now I'm keeping myself quiet because I don't say you look really funny. But that's what happens, you know. A tree is sick, a soil, the aim of the soil, it gives off a certain frequency, a certain color. And that color is also equivalent to a certain sound. That's why celestial energy gardening has to do with also sound. Each planet has a certain frequency. I go to this place called sound.org. Sound.org. It's a free place you can go to, and you can download all these different. So there are lots of different scientists and people who, like I see the most beautiful of enormous green tea. Yeah, it was a gorgeous royal blue. That's exactly right. See, green. So when I look at a tree or a lawn that's bright green, chemical fertilizers, because it's a blue-green color. It's a blue-green color. It's not a green color. It's a blue-green color. So Lily Silly was actually absolutely right, because I was going to say that. So when you go to sound.org, there are frequencies of the moon, the sun, the earth. This is what the earth sounds like, because we have the Schumann frequency, but it sounds
Schumann resonance.
Resonant. It has a certain sound to it. The sun has a certain sound to it. The solar system has a certain sound to it. And scientists are now just figuring out, okay, there's a black hole over there and a black hole over here. What connects the two of them?
Energy, frequency, and vibration, which is sound, color, everything we're talking about.
Yeah. And scientists are going, I think they call it, entrapment, or when you have a molecule in another galaxy or another place, another molecule over here, and they're entrapped. Silly, what's it called? It's not entrapment. I got that in my brain, entrapment, but it's not entrapment. It
Yeah.
means they're connected together. Silly, come on, spit it out. I know you can look it up, girlfriend. Just come on, do it. Here, I'm waiting for you. Come on. You're not listening to me. She's trying to figure out what is it. And there's a scientists that have come up with a name for that. And I forgot, and I keep forgetting because I have entrapment in my brain, because that's what it is. The two are connected to such a way that do not no, okay. They do not need to be physically connected.
Yeah, I know the term too, and it's just it's floating there and it's disappearing as fast as it comes in.
It's my fault. One of the things that happens when I do a show, and that's why I have to turn the phones off and everything. My friends all of a sudden get the vibes. I gotta call Andy. He's doing something to me, and then they call me up, and I said, I'm on the air. Oh, is that what it is? Because this is sending the frequency out, and I'm not just limiting it to the you and me talking. It goes out all over the earth, and those are people that tune in. They go, oh my goodness, and they get it. Whether they listen, what am I looking at?
Quantum entanglement.
Entanglement. There you go.
Yeah,
I call it entrapment, but it's entangle. Entangle is such a cool word because that means their energies are entangled.
Yeah,
they're entangled. It doesn't make it. And what's cool is that it could be one part of the earth, another part of the earth. It could be from the sun and moon. It could be from the planet to another planet in another solar system. It could be another galaxy, even another dimension. And what causes entanglement, and what's interesting, I'm not going to carry about, is a consciousness. Everything has a consciousness which connects us. See, everything has a consciousness which connects us. And that the consciousness allows you to see the frequencies, to hear the frequencies. You see what I mean? So when you meditate or you get into that space of pure energy, we are indeed one, right? We are. And so when you're doing celestial gardening, what you're really doing is you're tuning yourself. Because what's the point of being like unaware of what you're doing? And then you can never really tune into all the energies around you, whether all the microbes are dancing to this celestial energy. And when they're not there, then you're not getting the celestial energy that you need to survive, to be alive. Are you talking to Celia, aren't you? Yeah, Celia's in the background.
She came down. She was asking what she was supposed to be looking up, and it was the quantum entanglement.
You found it. Then I love talking to scientists because when you talk about quantum theory, oh man, these guys are they're like children, and they can't figure out quantum theory. And it's really very, very simple if you back away and say, look, everything's connected. Figure it out. Just figure it out.
If you I know Lily and I follow the Schumann resonance a little bit, and like she just said, the Schumann resonance is doing interesting things. There's a lot of things happening energetically in, on, and around our planet, in the universe. And we guys, if you don't understand, the more positive energy we put out as individuals,
makes a difference.
It comes together and it changes the Schumann resonance, so we can actually affect it.
There is a saying, and I don't know how to translate it, but basically it's okay. There's 1,000 Buddhists on the earth, and they're all on the planet. They're all meditating together. That's enough to raise the frequency level of everybody. And there's a name for that. So in terms of, it means that when as a collective, we're on the same frequency. Right? Right now with the war and all this stuff, we tend to tune into that instead of the frequency that we should be tuning into. What is the scientist fear? Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Serena does have a question, Andy. Maybe we'll just jump on that for a second.
Go ahead.
I have a tree whose leaves are already developing brown spots. Is it rust? The tree is oak.
The way you can tell is rust because it looks like rust. That's why they call it rust. You look under a microscope, a mirror, you see tiny little yellow things. That's called rust. Now, if it's usually a brown spot could be any number of things. It could be a deficiency, the tree's inability to take the trace metals and spread it out. So if it's missing a certain trace minerals, it's not going to be able to do everything that it's supposed to do. So this is a visual effect. You can see that tree is missing something because it has a spot there, and the plant is not getting the nutritional that it needs. In other words, the energy is not flowing through the leaves. Remember, the leaves are part of the antenna. I see a tree. Well, all beings are antennas. We don't happen to think about ourselves as an antenna. I do, but a tree is obviously an antenna, right? It's an antenna, and all the leaves and everything. They absorb these frequencies and they use it to survive, because then they also, it's interesting too, because a tree will channel into the ground, into the soil, into the living organisms.
Feeds energy into our planet. Think of it, guys. Think of it as flipping on a light switch, and that light comes on, and all of a sudden you've got all this energy, and the light goes off, and you don't have the energy. So if you don't have the light bulb, you can flip that switch all you want. You're never going to have the light come on. And it's the same if you don't have the trace minerals. You don't have the building blocks to draw that energy in. So I would suggest she does like a foliar spray on the tree.
Right. So that's one reason why I do foliar spraying, because that usually means that the plant is not connected to the ground. It may be sitting in the ground, but it's not connected to the ground, you see? And so that I physically give it the trace minerals through the leaves and through the trunk. I was there today in a place, giant. I looked at a couple of places, but I was at one place, and everybody has the same. Every property, I was going to say on the planet, but I know for sure everybody around here, that everywhere I go to, the soil. When I mean it dead, I mean there's nobody working there, nobody home, and there's nobody connecting. Nobody
life.
You're right. Nobody connecting to turning the switch on to allow even the plant. The plant is like, it's not getting that energy, therefore it can't give it. There's nobody there to take it, to use it. And also the energy flows into the ground. You don't need to it literally goes into the ground from the tree, not necessarily from the tree, because that's one way it gets it. The earth is constantly bombarded. All energy goes right into the soil, and the biology is there. They get it right away too. So, but if the plant, foods are mineral deficient, this disease increasing. Yeah, right. That's say it very mildly, because I don't really want to say food. The junk we eat is mineral deficient, and I think it's done on purpose. And I'm not going to go into why, because we'll get shut down.
Well, with all the scientists and researchers disappearing, and that we try to be more careful, but. So, okay, you brought up Serena's question. So
there's a name that scientists and doctors and what do you call it? People who are into plants call it. And basically, it said normally the plant is supposed to take the energy that it gets from the minerals from below and transmit it evenly. So one of the things you have to understand is us above, so below. So when you see half is yellow and half is green, that tells me that half, the root system down there, are having a problem. That root system corresponds with the upper part are having a problem. That means something is killing that part. Maybe the toxic, somehow something happened there, whether it's like a chemical got dumped there, all kinds of things happen there, right? It could be any number of things.
I do have one question, Andy, because I look at my rose bushes are just starting, and so half is green, half is yellow still. Do holly bushes have that same effect where they wake up in the spring and the chlorophyll is slowly coming and moving up into the branches? I don't know anything really about holly.
To me, that means that it could be see. When that happens, basically the system is not really working right. So some part of the body is working fine, but the other part is not working right yet. And it usually always relates to something going on in the soil, because it's not normal for it to be half of this way and half that way. That tells me physically something's going on in this part of your soil. And if you were to be able to slice it and look, you'll see, oh, that's what's going on over there. So something's affecting that part of the root system. And eventually, sometimes the biology will spread up, will cover itself. So if you have a good property with lots of biology, it will migrate over there and fix the problem. Somebody shut down the system over here and they will fix this up. But if it doesn't have the biology, it may never get over to that part of the tree, whereas this side might be something very radically different. Usually it has something to do with carbon. So carbon is not evenly spread everywhere. And so some places may have more carbon than other places. And normally the plant will give it to the whole body, but then it shows. Because if the root's not working right on that side, it will show. That's the main issue that you have to figure out. That's why when you do something, like when people do a drip system, they only put a drip on one side of the plant. They tend to, they do something on that side and they totally ignore the other half. And so it shows up there because the root system eventually will start to decompose and it'll be there. It's just be like a root, it'll be like nothing, right? And so if you that's why when I do so I've been teaching people OLA, OLLA. We talked about it last time. And don't put one OLA just on one side. You want to do it like the clock. Hi everybody. Who's grumpy?
Grumpy is grumpy.
Oh, that's Grumpy. Hi, Grumpy. Smile, buddy. So an OLA has to be done at 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and 9 o'clock. You do not want to just do it on one side or one section because the rest of it is not going to get it. You're lucky. If you have a very good, active living organism in your soil, it will tend to spread itself out. Yeah, the better, more biology you have, the easier it will tend to go around. But usually, so it doesn't really do that because some parts of it are deader than others for so many different reasons, right? You have to sort of look at it, what's going on. So when I do foliar spraying, to me the key is to not only do the leaves, but do evenly. So if you only do half a trunk, and the other half doesn't get it, and you'll see it next time you come around. Look, this part is doing really well.
You spray underneath the leaves as well, Andy?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay. I spray on top and make sure they all get on the bottom because they absorb differently. They're different. Even though the same organisms I'm spraying, it works well on top and works on the bottom. There's a different because you figure it out that leaves on top, the sun gets them, so they work differently than the leaves underneath them. You see, right? So it's a slightly different setup. And same thing with all plants that they're key to the sun. There's also a different factory going underneath the leaves.
Well, for most people that don't understand, your plants actually breathe in and out just like we do. It's on the bottom side of the leaf. It's called the stomata. And that's where in an indoor grow, you want to keep your vapor pressure deficit, your moisture to your heat ratio, so that your plant can actually breathe. Just like if we go into a sauna, it's really harder for us to breathe. And it's the same with our plants. So most of the carbon that is used by your plant is actually coming through the breathing from the carbon monoxide that the plant breathes in. It takes the carbon molecules, and that's where most of the carbon comes from for your plant cells, for your plant to grow. That's one of the reasons that a lot of indoor growers have tanks of CO2 to keep that CO2 at a higher ratio so their plants get that excess carbon.
The carbon, it's very interesting because the biology takes carbon and turns it into carbonic acid. Carbonic acid is what they use to break down the minerals and turn it into a form that the plant can use. And now the plant is not fed by a needle. The plant is fed by the root hairs on the plant. A different type of biology live on those root hairs. So they'll take this carbonic acid that the biology has broken down into the minerals, and because they're specialized, they can't go up to a plant and say, "Here, take this." They have to go up to the plant and talk to the other biology. It's for you, and that biology will automatically have a way of putting it into the plant. You see what I mean, right?
Yeah. Well, that's your exudates.
Oh yeah, what's the
talk about exudates? 90% of that exudate that the plant puts down into the root hairs, 90% of it actually comes back up into the plant, transporting all those different materials from your root hair area to
That's
bring
right.
it back up into the plant.
That's right. That's absolutely right. You and I get along really well because you fill in a lot of blanks. Because I try to explain to people everything, and I don't make all this stuff up. so
So
this
you're going to answer Serena's question here
yeah.
or what?
So I spread charged biocharge around the side of the bush that is yellow. Will it plus the rain? Will it plus the rain we will get this weekend be enough to start fixing the carbon issue and restore green to the leaves? So you really have to have. What you mean by charged is you charged it with biology. Is
Well,
that
if you have biochar, Serena, telling you right now, that is not a usable carbon
no,
for your plant. That
no,
your biochar is for the biology to live in and then be able to go out and mine the material, but it's not an
right?
actual carbon source for your plant.
No, you can't
But it
put
is
it.
a good idea to put it all the way around your plant because that's going to help long term.
Right. So what I do is I've learned to. I think what she meant by charging basically means is you need to activate it. You need to have the biology in it. So I always give biochar to my worm juice and activate it that way. And there's lots of other things you can activate it. I talk a lot about how to use Korean farming techniques, which are really very cool in terms of learning how to activate. Today I was talking about bukachi. Bukachi,
Bukashi. Yeah.
right? It's a Japanese way of use of making it because it's really cool biology. I talk a lot about using milk, which is lacto something. You know what it is, right? Lacto milk,
Lactic
lacto.
acid
There,
bacteria.
there you go, right? And so
Yeah.
right, exactly. With your compost tea, and I'm assuming your
Yeah.
compost tea is rich with the biology. That's exactly what you do. You put it in the tea, bubble, 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 preferably overnight, and then you can put that down. Yes, you'll have something to work with. But if you just put it down, it's going to take a while for the biology in the soil to use it. And it's important that you have a wide blend of biology because you want a wide blend of trace minerals. Each biology, each little guy in there is keyed into a specific trace minerals. And they say, hey, George, I need some calcium. Hey, Louise, I need some iron. He doesn't do all of it.
Well, and like Rick says, and we're talking about energy,
Right.
biochar will act as an anode in the soil. So it's going to be
Exactly.
drawing, positive, negative energy, right?
Exactly right. When you learn about so it's called paramagnetic. So I
Yeah.
learned about paramagnetism earlier on when I was learning about uh, Rudolf Steiner's biodynamic. That was the early 70s. Right? And also when we talked about being radionic and energy, paramagnetic is how they make, is why they orgone accumulate. I used to make orgone accumulator. Orgone is just a name that they give for energy, right? You know what I mean? And so when we are paramagnetic beings ourselves, the earth is paramagnetic. There's a whole bunch of stones and crystals and stuff which are paramagnetic, not a magnet with a north and south, but it's paramagnetic. I mean, it's the whole thing, like the earth. You may say north and south pole, but really it's one giant. We don't have a north and south pole in our body. We're paramagnetic. And once you learn that, you'll learn that anything that goes into the earth, especially if it's paramagnetic, will rechannel that energy back into the bio. They'll sit there. No, give me a shot of this, right? Mm-hmm. They take that. They need that to be able to pass it on to the plant, which is also paramagnetic. What's this one over here? I want to look at this one.
Biochar and basalt will add 0.3 volts, which is the same voltage as bacteria.
Yeah, I like you
I
guys.
didn't know that, Rick. Thanks.
Very, very good, Rick. I like your thinking because it's absolutely true. If you can measure so that's what they do electro gardening. Okay, so they think they feel that if you can set up little antennas, it channels it down. But the truth is, if you don't have the trace minerals and you don't have biology, no antenna is going to fix it.
Yeah. Well, you have to have the life in the soil to move that energy up and down. It's like hitting why they put cement and lead, for radiation, to hold the radiation so it can't penetrate. It's the same with our soil. You can have all the sunlight coming down, all the energy coming down, but you basically have a lead basin because there's no life there to move things through.
That's exactly what's going on. When somebody calls me up, they say, I have a problem. I said, okay. So they said, what do you spray that tree to get rid of the problem? And then my internal things, I would spray you. I would spray you first. Yeah. Your trace mineral deficiency. If deficient, you can't even handle the energy. And of course, your property is not going to be handle the energy, because for you, it's natural not to have any energy. And then you complain about, why does this plant have a disease? You probably have the same disease, and equivalent wise, because if you're missing certain trace minerals in your body, you're going to have the disease, and they don't relate it to. And then, I talk a lot about city water. And so a lot of these people, they have enough brain power to buy filter for the house, but nothing for outside. And then they complain, what's wrong with this property? And I would say, you are. Because if you go away, the earth will heal itself. Simple as that.
So right? I just want to say something to Rick Easley. Lily just came downstairs and said, we should have you on the show, Rick, to share your knowledge, because you have so much knowledge.
Yeah, you're welcome.
On a regular basis.
Yeah, we'll pay you $1,000 per appearance.
Yeah, right. Okay, I guess you're going to be paying that one, Andy, because I'm sure the heck can't afford that. But Serena wants to know, what is an anode?
Why don't you say what an anode is, Rick? It's basically, it's a conductor. It's a simple conductor that Mother Nature makes. There's so many different ways to conduct energy. See, it depends on the energy, how it gets built. So there are conductors all over the place that conduct energy. And so copper, once you learn what natural elements are conductors, and you'll find that that's part, gold is a magic conductor. We have gold in our bodies. Without gold, we cannot think. We cannot be electromagnetic beings. Okay, right? And so I learned that a long time ago. Cool, we have gold in our body. You know what I mean? Because that's a conductor. Copper is a conductor. A lot of things that we consider toxic, we have in our bodies in super micro tiny amount, without which we cannot be conductors. Here you go. There you go. Silly
anode and cathode make a battery. Oh, you changed what I had.
Oh, no, that's cool. Yeah, it is a battery, right? It's exactly a battery, right? And the battery, once it's connected, it gives you the energy. So the tree could be a battery. Human beings are a battery. But lots of things are natural batteries. Plants are natural bodies. Insects are natural. It depends, again, how they function in the environment. You're going to find lots of crystals, lots of gems are natural batteries.
Well, and somebody mentioned it earlier, like a lot earlier in the show, but we're salt batteries, and I've seen a lot of people creating salt batteries over the years. And there was one company, it was, a new technology, and all of a sudden it went poof, gone, because it worked so damn well.
Right. Yeah. And it's like, you can't patent, you can't tell people if they're healthy because they're if you're a battery, that means you have all the trace minerals, you're accepting the energy, and you're passing the energy on to. We need to learn to hold on to a certain amount of energy, because we need that. It's like you have a car without a battery. So it's not going to work. No matter how powerful your car is, you have to have a source of energy that you can store. And so our bodies have places. That's what chakras, energy centers are. They're not just meant to recycle, they're meant to store. The pineal gland stores, is our number one battery, the pineal gland up here, right in there. Oh, look, sorry, I didn't mean to touch it. It's a
don't hurt me. Don't hurt me.
Oh my God, right? It's a battery. Without that, energy can come in and go out. You're going to go, I know nothing. I don't see anything. It's like, don't see, don't hear, right? It's like you're alienated. And I think more and more people are like that. I'm glad the battery was brought up, because I don't see them absorbing energy, let alone giving off energy. And So
Well, that's why we talk about grounding and getting outside, getting that light. That's a lot of that energy, like indoor growing. You look at the light you're using, and you look at the frequencies that you're using. You know, they it used to just be a very narrow band of frequencies. We thought we're growing our plants, and then we find out, oh, geez, that bandwidth has to be expanded out in areas we don't see, right? Our eyes can't see, but the plants need that. We need that energy as well. That's why getting out into that grounding and touching that Schumann resonance and in being in that frequency, that vibration is so important.
so when I was young, I discovered electrons because as a
You
scientist,
discovered it, Andy?
yeah. I'm the guy that discovered electrons, right?
Okay.
And everybody finally learned. Do you have electrons? Are exactly the way the energy it gets transferred, how our energy travels. That's why it's called an electron. And if you don't have electron energy, or you don't have electrons, you're dead. You cannot. Your organs cannot function. Your brain cannot function, and that's one of the reasons why when you get sick, you don't longer have the ability to accept electrons because everything breaks down into an electron. This is the tiniest little thing that doing the thing there, and your body, because it's water. That's one thing I'm going to talk about when we talk about structured water. Is that the reason why structured water works because electrons are structured.
Mm-hmm.
So you have this
well,
chaotic.
positive and negative, and we've had Gerald Pollock, the author of the fourth phase of water, on our channel several times. And he talks about having a tube, of water molecules where the positive and negative, you have I think it's the positive, or no, is it negative inside, positive outside, where the actual, atoms and electrons, etc., are moved out, and it forms a tube like a straw. It is actually creating, a flow like a river creates a flow. It's Andy, that's going to be a really wild topic, man.
That's why it's called structured. And see, so the problem with human beings, they create a chaos in the water.
Yeah.
And the water is not structured. Anytime you have water flowing, you have 90-degree angles, no longer structured. Show me in nature we have a 90-degree where water goes up to. Doesn't happen. Because especially when you have all these weird angles, pipes, when you go through pipes, that unstructures the water. Chemicals, when you put chemicals in, will interfere with that structurability. So when in nature, when you have lightning, what do you think lightning does to water? What do you think?
Energizes it.
Yeah, when the river flows, you see the swirling, right?
Yeah.
So I was reading about this German scientist, and he was so in Germany they were doing logging, right? Where they cut the tree and they put it on a river, but the logs would sink down, and it made it very different. He realized that in structured water, the logs would float, and the only reason why he came upon the structured water is because the river would flow, and then the river would do this swirling thing and move on, and so he deliberately did that on purpose to swirl it, and he found that the logs just float on down, right? And cool. in nature, Mother Nature is constantly structuring water. So what do you think happens when you have plastic, microplastic, radiation, all kinds of toxic in the water? Unstructured. It's not structured anymore. What is this? People realize minerals are more important than vitamins for your health.
People don't realize that minerals are more important than vitamins for your health, both being essential. Make sure you're getting a whole food source. And that's one of the things we want you to grow your own food. And so you can get everything in your food into your body so you can be healthy. And that's why I'm going to be starting a new series where I'm going to be growing an indoor garden, different sizes, to see how much food can be produced in a small area indoors. Because I live in Canada. We can't grow year round like, you can in California. And
I love growing indoors. You just have to key in to imitating Mother Nature. That's why it's so important to learn sources of trace minerals. Because in nature, you normally will get to trace minerals, but they're being inhibited by the things we do. Mother Nature, if all the human beings was to leave the planet, Mother Nature would remineralize itself.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You see, Mother Nature would bring back and the way it does it, an ice age is one natural way of remineralizing. The glaciers will grind all the rocks down to a fine powder, right? Volcanoes, the heat will literally break down all the minerals and spew out. Like remember Mount St. Helena when it did. We look at how everything's growing now over there. So Mother Nature will get rid of human beings, and Mother Nature may take thousands of years to go back to normal functioning. But it will. We have a knack for causing chaos. We have a knack. We're really very good at causing problems, generating toxics. There's the age of mankind. I just thought of this. Silly could look it up. Silly, look up. Tell Google, whoever you talk to, what is the age of mankind called? And there's a name for it, and that means plastic.
It means plastic.
Yeah, that's what it means. Plastic. There's nowhere on the planet you can go to that you will not find microplastic. You will not find plastic. 10,000. I read an article that guy said 10,000 years from now, somebody will be digging somewhere, and he will find a layer of plastic that it goes around the world. Literally, you can't go anywhere. The deepest ocean, the highest mountain, plastic, and that
microplastics. Yeah,
and that's the name of the age of mankind, plastic. And there's a weird name for it. It basically translates to plastic, and that's sad. That's sad that we're doing that. But Mother Nature has lots of ways of cleaning us up. The biology will eat that plastic. The biology, I'm tired of this. Let's clean it up. See, it has their scientists are discovering now on other planets. How can any biology be there? No, they even eat radiation. They live in a freezing environment. They have to change in their concept of what's life, right?
Yes.
There's lots of moons around in our solar system, around Jupiter, for example, some moons. So they say we need water, but this is a liquid. It's not water. It's like ammonium, some other type of liquid. So biology will survive in a lot. Currently artificial, it's called Anthropocene. Yeah. Well, if you look at this is maybe that's it or not, but it really means plastic. That's what it comes down to. It means plastic. And so mushrooms thriving at Chernobyl. That's right. Chernobyl is a perfect example how Mother Nature will clean itself up. I think
she hides in the mycelium. The radioactive particles are hidden in the mycelium underground, and until they're disturbed, there's no radiation, showing. But as soon as you disturb that ground layer, then you have the radioactive material available to spread again.
There actually are biology that eat radiation. So in ancient times before mankind, there's a certain name for this biology which grew everywhere. Now you can only find it in 1 or 2 places on the earth. One of them is at the Mauna Kea volcano deep down below in the ocean where the lava is. It lives right next to the lava. And then the lava is spewing out stuff, and you have this particular biology. And they're saying that particular biology, not only does it go through radiation, whatever, it's one of the reasons we have so abundance of oxygen, because it used to be covering the whole earth. So scientists are trying to figure out how to regrow this stuff and start letting it grow everywhere, because that's the key to eating microplastics, the key to eating pesticides, chemicals. And to me, I think that, again, if you take rid of the omen, Mother Nature will say, okay, you guys are going to be doing this now, right? We're going to take care of this stuff. All bets are off. What happened? What do you mean all bets are off?
Well, the comment before, we've got tube worms thriving near thermal vents. The biology that exists in those areas inside the magma itself at those extreme temperatures, we're just finding out about this stuff through the scientific method. But if we didn't have biology, we wouldn't exist, because the cells need biology to divide, but they also need the building blocks. They need the energy, etc. And we keep disrupting different flows at different times of what we need.
So I came up with this really cool saying so we can end our show. Here it goes. Keep it organic. Keep it invisible. I'm Andy Lopez, Invisible Gardener. See you in the garden.
Well, then that's going to be the end of the show, but I am going to tell you what's going on tomorrow on Chiropractic is Sexy. Their title is Here Comes Summer. Don't take your foot off the gas. That's tomorrow during the day. And then on Monday with Leighton Morrison, we have Kelpie Wilson. She wrote a book on biochar, guys. So you want to find out more about biochar? She's been here with us before. It's going to be a wonderful show again. And as CT Grows says, it's all about the biology. Peace out, guys. We'll hopefully see you tomorrow with the ladies on Chiropractic is Sexy.
Oh, I love you guys. Thank